Hi everyone, very interesting news today out of Iceland, out of the Reykjanes Peninsula, where we have an eruption that has been going on since March 16th, so basically over a month now. But not only this eruption is the cause of interest or maybe concern, because it is connected with a land rise underneath the Swartsengi area where the Blue Lagoon and the power plant are located, because the land keeps rising, they're lifting up again. We'll talk about this in a minute, but there is more. If you have seen my last videos that I have released about like panic in the country and about the high number of earthquakes that has occurred. There was a large earthquake swarm in Grindavik, but that's not all. It's all over the country, and it's basically a lot of activity along the North Atlantic ridge. That's where two tectonic plates are moving away from each other, and we've seen a lot of earthquakes there, and Iceland is basically right on top of that. So are the Icelandic people concerned? Yes, that was the headline today. The high seismicity in the country is a cause for concern. So earthquakes happening not only where we have the eruption, not only in Grindavik, in other volcanic areas too, that could erupt at any time, that could cause another eruption. And we know the Reykjanes Peninsula has woken up from an 800-year sleep, so to speak. So guys, let's look into this. Could we see more eruptions in addition to the one that we already have? That one right now is also behaving interestingly. I mean, the main concern right now is gas pollution, and we know the Blue Lagoon, my friend, the Blue Lagoon had to be closed a few times again because the wind is blowing that gas pollution into the Blue Lagoon. It's roughly 4 kilometers away from the actual eruption site. And you know, Iceland is surrounded by sea, so there's winds and they can change quickly. So if you look at that gas pollution site, you can see where the winds are and how they're changing, sometimes from hour to hour. But even if there's no wind, the heat from this lava bed and from the eruption can influence like directions and cause the toxic sulfur gas to be blown maybe into populated areas like Grindavik or the Blue Lagoon, or as far as Keflavik, which we have seen just a few days ago. But it's really, let's have a closer look into this. Why is the whole country concerned about the number of earthquakes that are currently happening everywhere? So we're 1 month in to the current eruption, and we will look at a statement from a volcanologist that if you listen to my channel more often, you will know him quite well. Volcanologist Thorvaldur Thorvaldsson. And he says that right now, when he looks at the crater that is erupting right now, it seems to him that this eruption is on the way to slowly fade away. I just looked at the live pictures. Now it doesn't look like this anymore. I agree. When I looked at it a few hours, I was like, is this thing slowing down? But now there's a lot of glowing lava again, and it's spewing higher. So I'm not 100% convinced that I agree with him on this one. But he says that he is concerned about the high level of seismic activity all over the country. So this eruption that we're seeing right now is the 4th eruption since we have seen that magma accumulation underneath the Swartsengi area, basically right underneath the power plant and the Blue Lagoon. And that land rise has started at the end of October in 2023. And then we have seen this massive magma accumulation that formed a 15-kilometer long magma dike that was going right underneath Grindavik, and it came with quite a big earthquake swarm that has rattled the town of Grindavik, triggered an emergency evacuation, and done a lot of damage to sewage system, underground cables, heating system, water pipes, foundations, cracks in the wall, crack openings, sinkholes, fissures getting longer and wider. So basically it has turned everything that's underneath Grindavik into a Swiss cheese. So this is the second largest eruption that we have seen there. He thinks it might end in 1 or 2 weeks. So he says that the glow from this crater that we're seeing right now is much smaller today than it was yesterday. And that's why he thinks maybe it's going to end in a week or 2. But the thing is that land rise underneath Swartsengi is already happening again, continuing, despite the fact that we have magma flowing out into the eruption site, but it's still accumulating in that magma chamber again, and it's coming from a deeper magma reservoir. So even if the eruption stops and that land rise continues, and it looks like this at the moment, there is a risk that the same event that we're seeing right now will pick up again. So the land has been rising. Again, we will look at the graph in a minute, and that's very, very interesting. Where is the status quo of that land rise? And I was quite surprised that it's that high already. Of course, it does not have the same level yet that it had when the last eruptions were triggered. So it reaches a point of maximum elasticity where there is no more room for more magma, and then it triggers an event, an intrusion like on November 10th, or an eruption. So it's not there yet, but we will look at the graph and you'll be surprised how close it is. So the question is now, is that magma that is coming up from the deeper magma reservoir, is that flow stable or is it slowing down? Right now, it doesn't look like it is slowing down. So there's a few reasons why the eruption that we're seeing right now could be reduced, if it is reduced. I'm not 100% sure about that, guys. Look at the live cameras. Let me know what you think. So it could be reducing because more and more magma is being accumulated in the magma chamber again and not flowing out anymore. But the other reason could be that from the deeper magma reservoir that there's less magma coming up. But, you know, since the eruption is still going and the land rise is happening, I don't see that this is the case. I think the flow is pretty steady. And if the magma chamber is filled up again, this eruption, if it's still going by then, could be increased again by another shot, another pressure build up in the magma chamber, and then it sends it on the way again. So Thorwaldsen says, in the case that this eruption will die down, he thinks there is a possibility that if this eruption stops, that there could be a break on the Reykjanes Peninsula in this Sudnuka crater series. Not everywhere. There could be a break for 10 to 20 years. That is interesting, but you know, for that to happen, we would really need to see the land rise fade down and stop, in my opinion. So I don't really think that is likely. Let me know, guys, what you think. But let's talk about the seismic activity overall in Iceland. And there is a lot of activity in the country at the moment. And there is a lot of tension release going on that comes with these earthquakes. They're a sign that tension is released somewhere. And he says because of that, eruptions can start elsewhere and not just on the Reykjanes Peninsula, basically all over the place. And he says many eruptions that Iceland has seen in the past, they come as a surprise. And, you know, there was not much warning time. He has mentioned Grimsvatn, Askja. I've made some videos about Askja. Askja could be quite dangerous and explosive, especially when there's tourists in the area. Thorwaldsen has compared it to White Island in an interview. He said, you know, the land is rising there and it could come with little warning because the tourists don't have enough time. You don't run away from this thing. So that's why he compared it to White Island in New Zealand, that all of a sudden caused like an explosive eruption and people lost their lives. It was very, very tragic. And Askja is basically covered by water. So water and magma don't do well with each other and cause explosive eruption. Particles could be spread high in the air and very, very far. So tourists could not outrun this explosion, especially since even the parking lot where they're parking is basically on the volcano. And they need to walk an hour to get back to the parking lot. So that's why he has warned in the past, basically over the last 1.5 years, that this could be catastrophic and that they need to be ultra careful. And he has mentioned many times, close it down for tourists. So that's why he compared it to White Island. He says they can come up with relatively short notice. And he says in 1918 in Katla, it was not much time before the eruption has started there. There was some seismic activity just a few hours before the eruption. So he's giving a warning here to be on alert, to be using some caution and to monitor that closely. That's what I take from this. And let's have a look what the Meteorological Office of Iceland is saying about that land rise. So the lava is coming out of that one crater, and the Met Office says that the eruption is constant. And of course, we have talked about this in the past, a lava bed continues to build up near the craters and around the craters. But also, there's a lava flow in closed channels. It's flowing about 1 kilometer to the southeast. So that's the direction towards the defense wall of Grindavik. So maybe you don't see it on the surface, but it has built a tunnel and there it can flow. So it's a quite tricky lava there. You think, oh, there's nothing coming. It's all accumulating around the craters and the land is rising there. Because of that, it's building on top of each other. It's not advancing that fast anymore like it did the first few days. It was almost reaching the sea, which would have been a problem, right? Because it's explosive. But then it stopped about, I think, 350 meters before it would reach that and flow over the road there. It stopped. And then it started accumulating on top of each other, creating another problem because it was still flowing towards the defense walls in Grindavik. And they were just 8-meter high and the lava was reaching that height. So it was threatening to flow over these defense walls. So that's why in some spots they had to increase the height of the defense walls about 4 to 6 meters, so almost twice the height, in order to keep that lava away. And then it was quite a release. It's flowing on top of each other, but it's remaining around the crater. But it's flowing into not underground, but within that lava that has built up, it has formed a tunnel. But right now it's only flowing like 1 kilometer to the southeast, but it's getting closer in my opinion. And there are also active areas in the lava bed across from Hagafell. And Hagafell is not that far away from Grindavik. So it still needs to be monitored, I think. And they have done a new land survey. They have done a new aerial image where they have measured that lava and also measured the thickness of the lava. And if you look at that map, it looks less scary than the last map because there's less red areas. The last map that they released was very, very red. But if you look at the left, they have changed the scale, the numbers that come with each color code. So now dark red is more than 32 meters. This was less before. So don't be fooled. It's still quite high. And if you look at the crater, some say the crater is higher than 50 meters, but it's definitely higher than 32 meters around that crater. That is really, really high. And then there's areas in the orange areas, and there's quite a few of them. That's like 16 to 20 meters. And imagine the defense walls around Swartsengi and Grindavik, there were 8 meters high. And now if you look to the red lines where there's Grindavik, a little bit north of Grindavik, you see that purple lava field. And then you see where the current lava, the yellow stuff, has reached the defense walls, like a little bit east of Grindavik. And there you see there's some orange areas. So that orange area is anything between 8 and 16 meters. And that's why they had to increase the height, especially at that corner there. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with this. And they're saying the land rise at Swartsengi or underneath Swartsengi is continuing at a steady pace. So it's not showing any signs of slowing down. And approximately half of the magma that is coming up from the deeper reservoir goes into the magma chamber, into the more shallow chamber. And the other half is flowing out into the eruption. And I want to show you the graph here. You see the vertical red lines and you see the vertical blue lines. So the blue lines, that's an intrusion. So no lava's coming out on top of the surface. And the red lines, that's an eruption. And it shows basically the land rise underneath Swartsengi since November 10th. So the first blue line that we see here on November 10th, that is the magma dike, the 15-kilometer long magma dike that has formed. And then the first graph, you see to the north how the land did rise. So after November 10th, the land continued to rise. And then we have seen an eruption, and it was subsiding because magma was flowing out of that magma chamber. It was rising again. And then we saw the next eruption. And then it was subsiding again. So if you look at this graph here, you can really see it quite clearly what is happening. All these red little dots, and then on the very right side, you see one green dot. So that's the last measuring point. And now look at where we were when the last red line was reached. That has triggered the March 16th eruption. And now look where we are. We're not that far away. The land keeps rising again. Of course, that curve is not so steep like the other ones because you have to factor in that we already have an eruption going. Magma is flowing out while this is rising. But I was quite surprised. This has risen quite significantly, in my opinion. So I don't think it'll take very long until this magma chamber has reached the maximum elasticity again, and then sends even more lava, magma out into the eruption site. So interesting things, guys. They're saying there's still the risk of gas pollution from the volcanic system, which can cause pollution in settlements on the Reykjanes Peninsula, and they still advise people to monitor the air quality. And I will do that too for you so that you can see where it's probably blowing. That was my update. There's another update, but this would be too long for this video. It's really rumbling between the residents of Grindavik and the government that Thorkatla company that has been founded for the sole purpose to reimburse the residents for the damages to their homes, basically give them the chance to leave Grindavik, buy out the homes of Grindavik residents. And they were promised that this would happen in the first week of April. And it hasn't happened. It's so slow. So now people have the problem that they have secured new homes, the purchase of new homes, with most of them like a 3-month closing time, so that they would pay in 3 months when they have received the money from that company. But now the money's not coming. These contracts are expiring, and the sellers do not want to extend these contracts because the market values have gone up because of the influx of so many new residents coming from Grindavik. So they're relisting their homes at a higher price, and then they're pricing out the current residents. So they're so angry. And I want to tell you a few stories. What's happening? They have been downtown Reykjavik at the capital of Iceland today, and they have protested, and they say we're angry and disappointed. We were hopeful, but now we're just angry. And this video is coming out in a few hours, but if you want to learn more about this, check the video in the end screen. I have already given information about that. And for those of you who requested more from my farm and the horses in this video here at the beginning, but a lot also later, you will see what's going on here, what happened just a few hours ago. So check out this video, and thanks for watching. Thanks for your support, guys. I hope to see you soon and in a few hours. Stay tuned. Bye bye.